The Curse of Oak Island is one of the highest-grossing reality television series out there. At less than 1 mile long and 1,000 feet wide, the tiny island of Oak Island in Nova Scotia has played host to the world's longest-running and most expensive treasure hunt. The two brothers Rick and Marty Lagina have spent nearly a decade searching on the island. However, there were times when they had to hold off from making public certain lost properties to avoid threats from notorious minds who would have posed a threat to them in their show. So what is the reason behind such a decision? What secrets lurk behind the shadows of Oak Island? Side note, Rick and Marty Lagina are the most popular treasure hunters who have spent a lot of time on Oakland Island. Their progress is documented on the history show called The Curse of Oak Island, which has reached its 10th season. The show has been a global hit and has cultivated a large fan base, eventually raising the profile of the Lagina brothers. However, there are some things that are not so popular about them. Most Oak Island aficionados might know that Marty is a self-made multi-millionaire who made his fortune extracting natural gas in Michigan. But that's not all. After completing his engineering degree, young Marty decided to go ahead and take a law degree as well. However, he never practiced law. From childhood, he had intended to go to law school, and he made his childhood dream come true by doing so. The law degree was not all useless. It came in handy when he founded his own energy company. Hiring a lawyer was expensive, so he became his own lawyer. What a smart man. Like his younger brother, Rick was born in Kingsford, Michigan. He then went on to become a U.S. postal worker before retiring and taking up the hunt on Oak Island. Rick is unlike his brother. Nothing much is known of his past or present, as he is a fiercely private man. Rick had a thing for Oak Island and its famed money pit since he was 11 years old. Although Marty was skeptical, he wanted his brother to achieve his lifetime goal, and so he put up the majority of the money to purchase the stake in Oak Island Tours Incorporated. Up until the end of Series 5, the brothers have uncovered a number of historically significant items. Rick and Marty Lagina have one of the most terrifying jobs out there. They investigate the mystery of Oak Island and try to unearth the fabled treasure it hides while they experience the everyday dangers on top of dealing with the scary curse and other paranormal that haunts the practically uninhabited island. For hundreds of years, Oak Island has been associated with ghostly folklore and superstition, and visiting these places might be a near-to-death experience for some. One of the strongest pieces of evidence that points to haunting on Oak Island comes from a letter sent by Florence Eisenhower to Monsieur Chappelle in 1955, which talks about Eisenhower's grandfather, Anthony Graves, who had lived on Oak Island for decades, and Eisenhower tells Chappelle about visiting a man years ago who had known her uncle, Will Graves. The old man said that when her uncle had been dying of consumption and he had told him. He then tells about a man he had met when he was out in his boat one evening. He described the man as having long white whiskers and claimed that the man called to him and said, "Come here and I will give you all the gold you can carry." Apparently, her uncle was frightened by the encounter and rode away from the figure. This is just one of the spooky stories of the cursed Oak Island. Another story of haunting on Oak Island comes from Peggy Adams, who lived on the island in the early to mid-20th century with her parents, who were the caretakers at the time. Even though they had told her nothing about the history of the place, she kept seeing strange figures. She told her mother that she had seen what seemed to be British soldiers coming up from the shore. Another day, she came in crying, and after telling her mother what she had seen, her mother realized that her daughter was describing pirates. All of these stories and the treasures that have been found on the show till date has made many people curious as to the credibility of the show. Though many people were suspicious of the show at first, with each passing season and episode, more things were found from the island, like Maravedis coins dating back to the 17th century, which induced a feeling of genuineness to the show. Many other findings include a 17th century military button, Britannia coins, Knights Templar coins, a lead cross, a garnet brooch which indeed appeared to be a multifaceted ruby along with many other valuable findings. Oak Island is said to hold a lot of interesting finds. The most popular theory claims Oak Island to hold the buried treasure of a 17th century named Captain Kidd. According to local legend, a dying sailor on Kidd's crew claimed that €2 million worth of treasure was buried on the island. Treasure hunters in the 19th century uncovered a large stone from the fabled money pit containing symbolic inscriptions said to read, 40 feet below, £2 million lie buried. Dan Blankenship, an Oak Island treasure hunter for over 40 years, believes a marauding 16th century galleon, filled with gold from the Americas, was forced to dock at Oak Island after suffering damage from bad weather. The crew buried their treasure intending to return later on with a more seaworthy ship. Needless to say, they never returned. Some people have suggested Sir Francis Bacon, a 16th century author, was actually the man behind the works of Shakespeare. Evidence from a piece of parchment paper uncovered from within the money pit has given rise to the theory that Bacon's original manuscripts lie under Oak Island. Another fascinating treasure known to be buried under the island is that the religious military order known as the Knights Templar amassed a great amount of treasure said to have contained the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant. With Templar symbolism discovered on the island, including a Christian cross formation of rocks, there are some that believe Oak Island became the final resting place of the Templar treasure. Another theory suggests that the money pit is actually a Viking ship, sucked in by the quicksand-like surfaces on Oak Island and turned vertically during the sinking process. The wooden planks separated at regular intervals in the pit would then be explained as backrests for the rowers. Another important speculated treasure within the island is Marie Antoinette's jewels. During the French Revolution of the 1700s, it is said that Marie Antoinette instructed her lady-in-waiting to take her jewels and flee. Most of the jewels have been missing ever since. Some believe the maid fled to Nova Scotia with the help of her royal connections, and aided by the French Navy, constructed the money pit as an elaborate vault to house the jewels. Another fable related to the money pit is that Fort Louisbourg was a Nova Scotia French fort, which was surrendered to the British after a siege in the mid-18th century. The money pit on Oak Island is said to be French and naval in style, therefore, certain researchers have argued it contains monies from the fort, smuggled out before it fell to the British. In 1762, British forces besieged and captured the Cuban city of Havana, discovering a large sum of money in the process. With a naval base in Halifax, Nova Scotia, it's been claimed the British buried their imperial treasures on nearby Oak Island to prevent them from falling into the hands of American revolutionaries. Another theory about the money pit is that the symbols on the stone uncovered from the money pit were similar to the Coptic alphabet, and when translated spoke of strict Christian religious practices. This has led to the theory that Coptic Christians from Egypt came to Oak Island to construct the pit. With so many speculations regarding Oak Island, this place has become a curiosity for many people around the world, thus increasing the risk of trespassing and theft from the various sites being dug. It is likely that many of the findings have not been made public due to security reasons. Now, everyone curious about Oak Island has one question: can you stay on Oak Island? Before you pack your bags and set off to find your own treasure from Oak Island, you should know that the island is strictly private. As 78% of the entire island is owned by the Lagina brothers, there's a good chance that any digging you want to get done has to be completed with their permission. This place is a pretty great beach town when the weather is nice. Since the show has a lot to do with the popularity of the island, there are tons of themed tours and destinations you can visit while on the island. What do you think of the show? Do you think that the island is haunted? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.